Hey everybody, it's Andrew Ross here from Indie Garage. Uh, Another session of Indie Garage Live. Thanks for joining. I'm here with JF Champagne. He's the president of the Automotive Industries Association of Canada. Good morning, JF.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, thank you very much for making the time for us. Now, the Automotive Industry Association of Canada just released a second round of its COVID-19 business impact surveys. What are we seeing as this continuing to evolve situation is upon us?
Sure, Andrew. I think it's a bit of a positive outlook to the future, but I think at the same time recognizing that the industry remains very disrupted, and the survey results shows that we're I think into recovery, but obviously a high level of disruption. But I think there's a growing sentiment of confidence in the industry that continues to grow, which is a good story to tell.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a kind of a telling graph, if I can pull it up here, that seems to say kind of what you're getting at here. These are much more positive and optimistic numbers than in the first round, are they not?
That's correct. So, we're up to 56% now that start to see a recovery from 42 in the previous survey. And you see, we also have at 18% of people telling us, I think we're going to go back to pre-COVID conditions where we only had 6% in the first time. So 3 times more people telling us they're confident they're going to go back to pre-COVID conditions. So again, there's still a amount of uncertainty. But when you think about the confidence level, it's definitely going up.
Right, right. Yeah. And we see that in conversations with, industry professionals out in the field, many as regionally as things open up, across Canada, and also as, the supply chain internationally opens up a little bit. There's a greater flow of confidence, again, but as you mentioned, there are still, some concerns at play, are there not?
Correct. So if you think about the variations from one survey to the other, about 90% of the people are telling us they're disrupted. But when you really, drill down, we now have 57% telling us that they're slightly disrupted. Sorry, 33%, where there were 57 before. And when you say about, very disrupted, down to 34 from 61. And so while the vast majority, 90% are telling us they are disrupted, the very disrupted starts to very much retreat. And so we see that movement and we see that also in the confidence level that's going up.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. What are the, I was trying to see, I think there's another slide that I came across that has some telling factors, and there are continuing concerns, as you mentioned, in the industry for what we're going to face going forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Andrew, I think for the industry, really, when you look at the top industry concern, they're all, seeing ahead of them some form of recession. I don't think we could really, at this point, have a good, forecast for that. But everyone seems that they're very concerned about that, and also very much concerned about a potential second wave that would also be very, very disruptive to the economy and their industry.
Right.
And interestingly enough, that continues to rank very high is managing stress. And so all of our industry leaders have gone through a phase where they've had to manage a lot of disruption. They've had to manage a lot of management of change. They've had to let go of some of their employees or lay off staff, which, by the way, this survey tells us they're starting to rehire people that are previously be laid off. So it's a good indicator as well. But overall, I think the stress level for all people in the industry remains very high, and it's one of the top 3 concerns that we're seeing through the survey.
Sure, sure. I mean, here's the kind of top level rundown, from the survey report here, and obviously, I think it speaks to that kind of multi-level economic picture that people are looking at. It's global, national, and provincial situations into play. As far as decisions about which sectors are opening and how much activity is occurring. As you noted, a second outbreak, the second wave, people are very concerned about what that's going to mean in the coming months, and concern over staff and stress, and for folks who are either in work for home situations or working in the bays, at the service level. There's a lot of stress. People are concerned about their health and their safety and their well-being, and they're out of their normal kind of balance of their life, right?
That's right. You mentioned, international versus provincial, and something else that we are very much monitoring is the impact on the supply chain. AIA, it really represents the entire supply chain of the automotive aftermarket, from manufacturing, distributions to the institutions of mechanical and collision repair parts. We are seeing a good increase from the respondent telling us they're seeing delays in obtaining vehicle parts. The percentage of respondent telling us that they're seeing disruption from the suppliers has grown now to 57% of respondent. And still, relatively small percentage, 13% saying we just can't offer some product and services as a result of not having the right goods. So we are seeing that, obviously, as we're going out of, or going through the recovery, right, that being able to get good supply is a little difficult. And when you ask, and you drill down through the comments, what we're finding out right now, it's mostly driven by delays in obtaining parts from US warehouses. So we could tell the movement of goods from the US is a little disrupted. And so that's something else we're going to be monitoring through not just the first and the second survey, we'll continue through subsequent surveys as well. So to get Canadians a very good perspective of the impact here in Canada of the COVID-19.
Sure. Yeah, I think that we've all seen, in a number of sectors, the supply chain disruptions, whether that's in, obviously from the industry standpoint, or just in our personal lives, as people are, again, many people are work from home. So even just general supplies to, keep their home offices going, in a lot of cases required shipping rather than going to stores for quite some time. So
that's right, Andrew. That's right.
Disrupted at the very least. So, yeah. Now, what going forward on this? What's the takeaway for the industry? Do you think, JF?
I think I've always been sort of inspirational in the sense that we are an essential service. I think this industry has responded very well, despite the disruption, to continue to make sure that we could provide safe and timely repairs for Canadians. So we are keeping, in many respects, the economy going for Canadians by providing the mobility for people. And so I think that's something that we should be proud of. We have been able to balance the need to protect our customers or businesses or employees while providing those services to Canadians. And we've seen the recovery. A lot of people I spoke to are telling us that, we get a sense that it's coming back. When we ask them what the forecast is for the next 30 days, while majority are saying, we're still going to see probably reduction 1 to 30% from last year, a good percentage now are starting to see, going back to some form of normalcy in terms of sales volume.
Right.
There's something else I want to point out here, Andrew, is we've also asked questions related to Canadian programs offered to the aftermarket. We didn't do this in the first survey, but did it this time because we want to make sure that we get a good sense of, what are our aftermarket members doing in Canada in relations to getting some financial supports. You should know that 53% of respondents said they've taken opportunity to use the CEWS, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidies, so 53%. And 48% of respondents have said they've used the CEBA, the Canadian Emergency Business Account program from the federal government. So we need to be cautious. Some of the comment were, we live in a bubble a bit. We're still able to operate with, strong financial support from the federal government. These programs will eventually come to an end, and I think we'll have to very monitor the recovery at that point. And we'll be conducting more surveys to make sure that we get a very good pulse on, how it's impacting the Canadian aftermarket.
Sure. I mean, with the relief programs and the financial assistance programs, one of the oft mentioned uh, uh, issues for business, a little bit twofold. Some businesses in some sectors have found that they've had difficulty getting people to come back to continue to build their business volume. Is that something that's been expressed in either the survey or the open-ended comments from the respondents?
Yes, it has been for sure. And we have been relaying those messages, I guess, through the federal government. There are some consultation groups that are looking at the business community and asking the questions, is the federal program a hindrance to motivating the workforce to come back to work? And that has been a concern. It's not just related to the aftermarket, but some other industries. And we are obviously relaying those messages and making sure that the government fine-tunes the programs to make sure that employees would normally be motivated to come back to work, do so, and don't necessarily just simply take advantage of current programs and choose not to come back to work. Mind you, we also respect the fact that for some, family circumstances and health circumstances make it so that it's maybe hard for them to come back as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it is. It has to be, a balance with the employees' well-being, and I think all responsible employers will respect that, even if sometimes it might feel like it's to some extent a barrier with restaffing to meet the growing volume of business. Now, one of the I guess finally, was there any feel for a reluctance to take advantage of the business relief programs? And most of them are essentially invitations to have add some debt to and lending kind of programs to business. Has there been any expressions of concern over just building debt?
Well, it's for sure, some of the comments always talk about the bubble that this environment is creating, bring a lot of influx of additional funds into the industry through federal programs that will increasingly obviously have to be bared by Canadians and businesses in future years. So there has been some of those concerns for sure, and concerns of ours in ensuring to make sure that we're not going to be overly taxing the industry as we come back into some form of recovery. So I would say that it is a concern for sure from the perspective of what we got from the survey and the conversations we're having with members.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Well, that's great, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming. I think it sounds certainly like, things are going the right way. There's still quite a bit of work to be done and some lingering concerns to be sure. There's still a fairly significant degree of uncertainty about where things go from here. Is that a fair comment?
That's correct. I think we are confident. We are seeing some recovery. We remain, I think, stressed about the fact that there's still a high level of uncertainty. And I think that whether or not we have a second wave in the fall is going to be very much determining what we're going to see into 2021.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that certainly regardless of what the economic zigs and zags that come on, the aftermarket's certainly got some experience in dealing with them, and will do their utmost to keep the Canadian driving public safe and mobile, correct?
That is correct. I think again, need to be proud of our industry. We've done very well. I think we have a lot of resilience. And I could say from an AIA perspective, as an associations, we're here and we'll be providing information and engaging the industry to make sure that they have the information they need to make the right decisions moving forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, JF, for your time. Anybody who wants to obtain this full report can visit AIAcanada.com. It is free for download, am I correct?
Yes, it is.
For all comers, which is a good thing. That's all for us today. Thank you again, JF, for your time. I'm Andrew Ross for Indie Garage. Everybody be safe, be strong. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Andrew.